ask you a question. How many times in a week, a month, or even in a year does a song find you that you haven't heard in forever? And it just is one of those heartfelt songs that takes you back to, well, great memories. Well, I heard one the other day, and honestly, I love this song, and I really want to know where it takes you and if you remember it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. That's right. Listen, do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so right now. Absolutely hit that button. That will help me and this channel grow. You know the drill. YouTube puts me out there to a more vast audience, more viewers. That's more good for me. Please, if you're not, do it right now. Now, listen, there was a band back in 1976 that went by the name Shoes. And no, I don't mean like the shoes you wear on your feet. They spelt the name S-H-O-O-Z-E. And around March 1977, they discontinued that name and started going by the Generators. Eventually, that wore off, and they finally changed their name to Kix. And no, not like Kix the cereal, even though it's spelled exactly the same. No, Kix, this band that formed in, well, the late 70s, really started to usher in that 80s sound. And we all know that was, well, that was an uphill battle for a lot of bands. This band was no different than the majority of other bands that tried to find that unique sound that a lot of other bands were finding rolling into the 80s. And like most bands, they struggled to do so. Now, the band Kix, over the course of their career, has had upwards of 12 different members. But originally in the late 70s, it was started by Ronnie Yonkins and Donnie Purnell. Now, those two started the band, then later they brought in guitarist Brian Forsyth, then singer Steve Whiteman, and then eventually they brought in drummer Jimmy Chalfant. Now, these guys played all the way up until 1981. That's when they finally got a record deal with Atlantic Records. And Atlantic Records is the one that helped them release their debut album, self-titled album, Kix. Now, I'll be honest with you. I went back and listened to this album because, again, the song we're going to talk about today is the reason I even know who they are. But that was their fourth studio album. Their first album, their debut album, their lead single is a song called The Itch. If you go listen to this song, and tell me if I'm wrong. You go check it out. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I swear, you put this song on, initially it sounds like an up-tempo Bob Dylan. Then it kind of turns into a Four Non Blonde sound, and then you almost hear some Led Zeppelin in there. I know that's the craziest combination you could possibly think of, but I'm dead serious. Go listen to their lead single off their 1981 debut album, and that's exactly the vibe that I got. But again, this album didn't do too well for them, and again, it was just like most bands in that decade. So competitive that you needed to release something, that really rocked to set yourself on course. Unfortunately for Kix, this debut album wasn't that. So to follow up their debut album, Kix got back in the studio in 1983 to release their follow-up, Cool Kids. Now, their lead single, Body Talk, this was a little more of a, okay, we're going to get into that 80s sound. It's definitely an 80s style track if you go listen to it. It's a rock song, but it's got that little bit of electronica in it. And another crazy comparison. You go listen to Body Talk by Kix, this is 100% the vibe that I got. It was like Flock of Seagulls meets Dokken. No lie. Go check these guys out. I really see in their early work, it was a bit experimental. Definitely a far cry from what they would eventually become later toward the end of the 80s. But this will be the only album to feature Brad Divins on it, who played guitar for them, with the departure of Yonkins, which this only turned out to be a brief departure because when they get back into the studio for their next album, Yonkins would return with his hard guitar playing style. Now, a couple years later, Kix got back in the studio in 1985 to record their third studio album, Midnight Dynamite. At this time, they brought in former Rat producer, future Warrant producer, Beau Hill, and they also brought in hit songwriter at the time, Bob Halligan Jr. Now, this was a good combination for these guys. They were definitely trying to one-up themselves each album, put more effort in and trying to do the things they needed to do to succeed. And the title track, Midnight Dynamite's actually a pretty damn good song. If you go watch the music video, this is what you do. You close your eyes and listen to it, and you know you're listening to a damn good rock song. Problem is, and what throws it off, is if you open your eyes and watch the video. To me, it seems like a perfect spoof of a 1980s rock band music video. All the things you would expect to see, but just kind of dumbed down and a little more goofy. They're on stage, they're doing their thing. They go kind of show spots of the crowd, but it's like, it's not a full audience. They're just showing little spots of a stage where you see a couple people standing there, And then in a couple other frames, you see a couple more people, but you never really see too deep in the crowd. Like, there's probably not a lot of people there, probably 2 rows deep, very dark behind them. And then obviously lead singer Steve Whiteman, you got air hitting him where it's supposed to blow his hair, and it is, but the way they do it is so cheesy. It's great. It's great. It's absolutely classic. But at the time, I'm sure it was a cool video. Go watch it now. Like I said, it's a little funny. Doesn't matter. Takes nothing away from that song, because Midnight Dynamite was number 18 on the modern rock charts that year. It was a good song. They also had another single called Cold Shower, which hit number 23 on the modern rock charts. So definitely, the guys were heading in the right direction, and they were setting themselves up good for what they were about to do next. So now this is where I really wanted to get to. Their 1988 fourth studio album, Blow My Fuse. This is where the band really took that next step, and it might have been their biggest step they've ever taken in their career. But this album was amazing. And again, for their lead single, they brought in Bob Halligan Jr. once more. And he co-wrote with the band a gem. And every time I hear this song, well, I hadn't heard it in such a long time, but the reason I'm doing this video is because I heard it recently, and Jesus Christ, it took me back to a young child laying in my aunt's room, MTV on the TV. And I just remember seeing this video and hearing this song. And obviously, their classic hit, Don't Close Your Eyes. Now that song, Don't Close Your Eyes, off their 1988 album, Blow My Fuse, that's a classic hit. Because even me, I have memories as a young child with my aunt having that MTV blaring on her television 24/7 in her room. And she always had me on her bed laying down. She was like, had to have me around. She loved me, and I loved her. But that song is so iconic for me. I mean, you don't think about nothing but the big bands when it comes to the 80s. The Motley Crues, the Van Halens, you know, Cinderella, Rat, you know, Guns N' Roses. But there's so many other bands. I'm not going to say Dawkins is a small band. Dawkins was pretty big as well, Wasp. But there's other bands on that level down that most people probably don't remember unless you were there. I'm pretty sure Kix is one of those bands, but not when it comes to this album. The commercial success off this album was amazing. This album went platinum. Probably it is their best-selling album ever. And it's just a classic album, because if you go listen to some of their other singles, Cold Blood and the title track, Blow My Fuse, awesome rock and roll songs. And not only that, the videos ain't that bad either. So they definitely upped their music video game as well. So everything about this album was great for Kix. But the song Don't Close Your Eyes, I mean, just one of those classic ballads from the 1980s. And it can go right up there with some of the best. Home Sweet Home, Sweet Child of Mine, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. You can put Don't Close Your Eyes right there with it. Now, if you ask me, Kix is one of those bands that had a pretty damn decent career. I mean, you had the beginning of their career, which was a slow rise, 3 decent albums, and then they hit that peak with huge commercial success with their 4th studio album, 1988's Blow My Fuse. And then a slow decline. And I don't mean decline in a negative way, I mean just album sales and overall popularity went down after that. But no matter what, their peak in that song, Don't Close Your Eyes, absolute classic. And I really want to know from those of you out there, my little bit older audience, what do you remember about this album's release, and what do you remember about this song, the popularity? Do you have cool stories about this song? Just overall, what do you remember when it came out? I really want to know. Drop in the comment section. That's my favorite part, is hearing from you guys or gals and the interaction. That's the best part of doing videos, is what I get to do after it with interacting in the audience. So please, I got to know, because I know this song really gives me fond memories and takes me way back, and I love it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please go out there, take care of your friends, your family, do something amazing. Go for that one moment. Find that one thing that you really want to do and absolutely go for it. Go all in. And don't let nobody stop you or tell you you can't, and don't be afraid. You might have that don't close your eyes moment. You got to try though. Until next time, take care of yourself. I'm out.